In this video, I'll be taking the flying boat on the water to start testing it. In the last video, I'd gotten to the point where the tail needed to be covered with fabric. I've never done this sort of work before, so I paid a professional to come and do that for me. Nah, I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos and tried it myself. It was a fun process, not fast like most of this build, but definitely fun. The fabric is lightweight Seconite and the adhesive is the water-based Stewart system. Very nice and easy to use. One mistake I did make was the radius I chose for the tube bending was too tight. The fabric doesn't heat shrink enough to neatly cover the corners. A bigger radius would have resulted in a neater covering job. I painted the fabric with latex house paint rather than certified aircraft paint. Aircraft paint is expensive, so I used household exterior masonry paint. Let's hope it doesn't fly like a brick. I finally got to the stage where I can start the engine and blow some air over the tail. I was surprised by how much buffeting the tail received by the prop. I knew there would be some, but it was more than I was expecting. Quite rough on the tail, I would say, during a full power test. I would hope this is rough because it's a static test, and when moving along it won't be rough like this. I might be able to add some strengthening cables if the movement is too severe. No issues were detected with moving the rudder. It seemed to be working as intended even at full power. The time has now come for a water test. I haven't finished the elevator yet, so this is just testing the rudder effectiveness and tail rigidity. I've got a camera pointing back towards the tail so I can monitor the situation. I'm fortunate to be accompanied by two friends with airboats, should anything go wrong. And it did. I soon discovered a problem where I could only travel into the wind. There was a 15-mile-an-hour constant wind and turning the boat around was near impossible. Full power and full rudder deflection wasn't enough to overcome the weather vane effect from the wind. I could travel fine into the wind, but that was my only option. Even dragging a paddle in the water while adding some power would not turn the machine around. There was one occasion where I just about managed to turn around and travel downwind, but directional control was very vague. I had to slow down. When I slowed down, all rudder control was lost and then it turned back into the wind again by itself. I was surprised that the airflow produced by the prop didn't isolate the vertical stabilizer from the weather vane effect. I didn't think the wind would have this much effect, but it seems that it did. I think this means that operating the machine in a wind of 15 miles an hour isn't going to be possible. I know that aircraft always take off into the wind, but if you can't travel downwind, you can't necessarily get into a position for a takeoff. I expect that downwind flight will be possible, but not downwind taxiing. This is the first major insight into this type of craft, and it was a surprising one to me. It does mean that to use this machine you need a few things to align. You need the tide to be at a suitable time at a point during the weekend when you have time off work. You need the weather dry and also the wind needs to be below 15 miles an hour. Certainly during testing of a new craft you should also have a rescue plan which involves a friend with a boat also being available at the same time you are. Opportunities where all these things align may be few and far between. Time will tell how much use it gets during a summer period. One thing's for sure. When you are trying to establish the direction for a takeoff into the wind, it will be extremely obvious which is the right direction. It will be the only direction the boat will allow. I am glad, therefore, I decided to mount the tail on the back of the boat rather than on the front. I would have a bit of a problem if I had done that. An idea to reduce the effect of weather vaning after speaking with Kester Haynes and James Greenberger was a hydro rudder, mounted on the tail boom. I'm sure this would work, but it adds weight to an already heavier than expected tail. A small amount of weight added to the tail makes a big difference to the centre of gravity, and I'm trying to keep the centre of gravity in front of the 25% wind chord location. So apart from only being able to travel in a direction that gets you further away from home, the test went very well. The next thing to do is to get the elevator finished and mounted. I've made the brackets and cables which is needed for strength. I need to add stops for the rudder so that it doesn't contact the elevator. Now the elevator is mounted, the extra weight has increased a flexing problem. The tail boom is weak in torsion. It's strong in pitching force and yawing force, but it's not strong enough in torsion. To try and solve this problem, I'm adding some triangulation. I can just about see when I flex the boom the change in length on the diagonal. With those welded in, there is an improvement, but it's not good enough yet, so I'm going to have to add more. After adding weight to the machine for the last couple of months, I have to know what it weighs. I don't want to do this because the result is usually accompanied by disappointment, disbelief, total confusion, and your motivation completely destroyed. But I have to know, and the result is 225 kilograms, which for once is actually better than I anticipated. This result includes 35 litres of fuel. I'm excited by that. So excited, in fact, that I'm celebrating by hurriedly doing some maths. That's maths with an S at the end because I live in England and we're always right about how English should be pronounced or spelled. It doesn't have to make sense, we're just always right about that stuff. Anyway, back to the universal language of mathematics, where 2 plus 2 always equals 4. Unless perhaps you believe in a flat earth, in which case 2 plus 2 might equal 3. Okay, so 225 kilograms fully fueled plus the 50 kilograms estimated weight of the wings gives a finish weight of 275 kilograms. I weigh 95 kilograms, I know it's hard to believe, gives 370 kilograms. The wing area is 17 meters squared, which means the wing loading with just the pilot will be 21.8 kilograms per meter squared. By comparison, the Polaris Fib has a wing loading of 23 kilograms per meter squared. We already know the Polaris Fib with 65 horsepower has good flight performance. Add the fact that ground effect increases wing efficiency and the numbers for one person look great. With 2 people though, things are much more uncertain. Wing loading will increase to 27 kilograms per meter squared, and that might make takeoff speed impossible to achieve with 65 horsepower. It all depends on how much ground effect has. The next thing I'm worried about is the location of the centre of gravity. I've got the machine suspended at near the 25% wing chord. This is roughly where I want it to balance. I am alarmed at how tail heavy it is. This is a problem. I was hoping for a much better balance. Shifting my weight forward on the seat does balance it, but I'm going to have to move the seat forward. Really disappointing to find out how far out it is. A step back for sure, and only a step forward can solve it. Bear in mind, when I add the wings, 75% of the wing weight will be behind the CG and 25% will be in front, so that will make things even worse. There is at least scope to move the seat forward, so it might not be major, but I had put it in a nice comfortable position with all the controls nicely in reach. Slightly discouraged, but pressing on regardless. The next phase is the wings. Bye for now.